Hey, it's Ryan Speltz, and welcome back to another episode of the REConnect Podcast. And I do an injustice by saying another episode because this one's going to be a little bit different and a little bit more special than I think a lot of the ones that we've gone through so far. Each episode we've done so far has been in its own way perfect, and this one is no different. But I'm seriously pleased to have Katrina Moseley on with me today. She is actually the filtration system for REConnect and where the idea was filtered through. And she connected with me, and we had never talked before. And we kind of brought the idea and fleshed out the idea over, an hour to an hour and 20-minute timeline, and just kind of really started to advance the idea of REConnect. Somebody I look up to spiritually, holistically, and we are able to bounce amazing ideas off of each other. And she's just a fantastic person. So thanks for being here, Katrina.
I am super excited to be here today. This is really our first time together. I mean, said that in the most politically correct way. We've done a lot of back and forth calls, texts, and we do flesh out a lot very quickly. We don't waste time. Thank you for your kind words. It's been beautiful to get to know you, and that we were brought together, and our connection was very purposeful. And neither one of us forced it, right? It just came to me. I knew who it needed to go to, and you've done an absolutely remarkable job with taking something and bringing it to the world. So I want to thank you, because we wouldn't be here without you.
Appreciate that. So we're going to try to stick to the structure up front, and we know that that's going to be derailed very quickly, and we're okay with that. But this one's going to be a little bit different than all of the rest ones, and maybe a little bit longer, because Katrina and I can literally just spit it out, and I think we bring out the best of each other in those moments. So we'll start with your purpose statement that I asked you to define in one sentence, like I always do. And your statement, straight and to the point, was to help one more liberate thyself. And I think you can use those words in a couple different ways, like the way I just did of one more, or you can say one more liberate thyself. And so you can help one or help many. And I appreciate the fact of the language there with no punctuation. It was great. So how did you, this is obviously a very long, could be a long story, and that's okay. But how do you get to a purpose of helping people liberate themselves?
I think you get tired of asking what your purpose is, and you find it within, because it becomes the natural progression. I think you look at your story. My story is one of living tethered to dysfunction, early childhood, to addiction, middle childhood, to adulthood, and to bad relationships as soon as I could formulate them on my own. So, everything has purpose. And those were my stories that I got to go through to see what it's like to imprison oneself as a human. Wayne Dyer, one of my most profound teachers, says it's like living in a mansion with 99 rooms and only staying in one your entire life. And so through a series of dysfunction, addiction, bad relationships, I guess the pivotal question was, what's my purpose? Certainly this isn't it. Is there more? And that was a resounding answer that I got within, and that took me on a journey. I call it my quest for truth. I did find some profound truth, and it's my truth. But along the way, I looked around and thought, there's a lot of people imprisoned here. And I was very good at looking outside and saying what was wrong with other people. That's the thing. I was still a prisoner of my own ego, and a prisoner of my own judgment, a prisoner of my own finding something outside of me for so long, even on the quest, right? So I guess when I woke up, it was that when you don't know what to do, serve. And I just gave my life to that, right? Silently. I didn't proclaim it out loud. I didn't go tell anyone. I didn't put it on social media. It's like, and then Spirit, God, whatever I call, brought people to serve in very beautiful ways. I have a quote above me that I was just directed to. Jesus gave the key to those who wish to be the greatest. Find the way to serve the most. Service to many leads to greatness. And that's liberation, right? Service is liberation. And the irony of me being an addict, which put me in the rooms of, I was addicted to alcohol, put me in the rooms with alcoholics in a recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. For a short time, I stayed there. And there was this saying, well, because we share the blood, right? The way out of self is to serve. And newly sober was when I first walked into those rooms. I couldn't conceptualize that. It was that statement alone, it's incredibly profound just to dissect it and chew on those words. The way out of self. And that's what we're imprisoned by, our own self. We think it's the things on the outside, like the dysfunction, like the addiction, like the relationships. But you have the power to change it all. And the way out of self is service. And you find yourself really and your purpose in service. It sounds like so cliche, but that's it, right? It's so simple, but it takes time. It takes understanding. It takes contemplation. It requires a consistent return within. And if I can help one person walk within, then they can help one more. And I think that's how we do this. One more. I sell houses for a living. And I think a profound question is, how does this one more become one more, right? Not that we're in lack, but because one more does multiply in beautiful intention.
Yeah, I think that more piece is that hinging piece there. And that's why I really, up front was saying that, like, the way that's even written out is so perfect, because we talk about more all the time. And it's interesting enough that the people that always want more are always in lack, because they want more of the wrong thing, or the wrong piece, right? Like, you want more stuff, or more money, or more transactions, or whatever you want to phrase it, insert physical realm here, right? But if we talk about more in the sense of what you and I have discussed on multiple times, or over multiple times, is it's not more stuff, it's more of less, almost. Like, it's more of just like allowing yourself to be. It's more of the freedom to understand that you can be whoever you need to be, or whoever you want to be, in whatever moment you want to be. And I know one of the things that we talked about last time is, I continually push you to get more of your message out there, because I know that you kind of feel a little bit like it's almost forced sometimes. And I think we're right there, but getting that message out can mean more for somebody else on the other side. And maybe that is part of the whole thing, is being able to spread that message farther, like you said.
Of course. And I agree with you. And I thank you for your patience with me as I do this dance and vacillate between what feels forced and what is effortless. And so, REConnect came pretty effortlessly to me. And so now understanding what comes next in this I think the effortless is the organic nature, and who needs to hear the message when. Instead of forcing it to be out there. But to your point, if I sit at home behind, I won't, so I'm not helping one more if I'm not being intentional about it, because I can very easily go into the self and live my leisurely life and enjoy it.
Yeah, and arguably we all can, and that's a limitation of us, of living in the physical of that. I want this. Okay, I got it. Now I'm good. And you just become, almost like there's a large difference between satisfied and contentment, right? Like, you can be content with where you are and how you feel and how you're speaking with people and how you're projecting outward. You can be content with all of that. But if you're satisfied, there's no drive for the one more, right? There's no drive to help the next person. I think you do a really good job of balancing that. And, really the challenge just revolves around, like, when you're saying stuff, just put it on camera and put it out there. Like, that's the struggle for you. It's not necessarily the communication piece, because you are so good at it. We talk all the time. And, whether you recognize that or not, I think, and even in your real estate business, you're so good at attraction to that piece because you let what comes to you come to you instead of trying to force it with somebody that you shouldn't be with on the transaction and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm working more towards the removing the force out of everything, and the allowance that we're here for a purpose, and connection is our centrifugal, our hub. And so who am I to connect with today? I think questions are very pivotal in our daily interactions, as our statements, I will be done. Who can I serve today? Then the second part of that is action, right? So meditate and then act, meditate and then act. Because if I'm not acting, then I'm not serving. And so to your point, I love that you always challenge me to pick up the camera, because really then here's the question, why am I not? What am I scared of? And that's an opportunity to face a fear and look at it. Am I still worried that I look ugly on camera? Well, that's an ego-centered thought. That's a judgment towards myself. And am I truly helping someone if that's what my thought is? But it's a very human condition. Here we go with our human condition, right? There's that very human element around the camera and the questions. And to anybody listening to this, I would just, say something out loud that maybe we've never said out loud, but maybe we've all thought it. It's like, do I really have a message? Why is my message more important than all the talking heads who are out there? Or is it just more noise to add? And certainly I try to be hyper intentional around not adding noise to the confusion and the chaos that simply exists in our world by everybody's self trying to be seen. And I think maybe I've been very judgmental of the view around me, and I just don't want to be seen like that. So I'm not going to be seen. So I'm whoever I'm supposed to help, they'll come. But that's a little bit egotistical too, because nobody's coming and knocking on my door really and saying, would you help me? They're not. And that's not the way we operate right now. You've got to reach people. You've got to have a space like this. And that's why I'm so grateful for you, because a space like this where there's no motive to get something from anyone else, that this platform is all about giving and connecting back to who we are, why we're here, and how we can serve. I mean, really just simplify it. And anybody who's not ready for this yet, that's okay.
Yeah. And even in the servants piece, you don't have to be like this wholesale servant thing. It doesn't have to be huge, right? Like we talk about one more. Well, if you can pass somebody and smile with your teeth, instantly you've changed the world. And it sounds, you mentioned cliche, but ultimately that's where the reward is. They're cliche because everybody has said them because they're true. You just have to cut through the statement to get to the truth. But if you can get to that one more person just by walking by and smiling, changing, somebody will look at you and scientifically they'll smile back, whether they show it on their face or not. Their brain is mirroring your smile. It's just like a yawn. And that's the piece as well, is you're making an impact without even knowing you're making an impact. The liberation piece of your statement there, how are you developing that in yourself? How are you helping to liberate yourself from what you mentioned of the jail of the body and the jail of our daily lives? How are you liberating yourself from that?
Just that, recognizing I'm not my body, I'm not my mind. I have a body, I have a mind. And so liberation can also be called, untethering, Singer says. But liberation too is like that freedom from. And so the freedom from the obsessive thoughts about, to go back to the way out of self. I never conceptualized when I was sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, what they were telling me was I had an addiction problem because I was addicted to myself in a low vibrational space. But that's it. And I couldn't get out of myself because I was stuck in self. And so that liberation piece is understanding it's not about me. That this self was an identity that was created through the dysfunction, the addiction, the bad relationships, the extremely traumatic experiences. All of those pieces developed a self. And so liberating myself from those pieces is not that the past doesn't matter, that the stories don't have a part to today, but that I don't identify with them any longer. And 10 years ago is when I first put down the bottle. And I didn't want to be an alcoholic, but I didn't know who to be. So I chose yogi and health guru, because I would drink myself to death, but I'd also get up the next morning and drink a ton of water and eat really healthy, which I will have to say is my saving grace. So I went from alcoholic to healthy yogi and made sure everybody knew that on social media so that I could have this identity. And then, I, truth be told, just smoked a lot of pot until I found truth that I had created yet another false identity. And I think that's important to talk about here in connection space, because I have no shame around that. I have absolutely no shame. And that's how I know I'm liberated, because it's only the human condition to continue to evolve into something that to be not something that we weren't last time, until you know what your true identity is. And the world has done a really good job selling the Mother Teresas or the Gandhis or these people who had such huge impact on the world, and not to take away from their work by any means, but I think it set a false bar for people. Like, if you didn't have that purpose and you couldn't go be with the lepers and really take care of people, then you didn't really have a purpose, or it was something you were going to search for because it was so big, and really it's just so simple. And so liberating myself even from, like, what am I here to do? Right? What am I here to be? Looking for that thing set me free. Not looking for that thing anymore set me free. Like, oh, I'm just going to help. Oh, okay. It's not about me. All right. Like, and I'm going to continue to get in my own way. Sure. Right. Because not overnight. This is just now I'm going to live the rest of my life. Right now, I've just begun the rest of my life, is like getting this part down. And again, I think that's the importance of having a community like this, where we can get real, get naked, get, vulnerable around. Sure, we create identities. Look around our culture right now. We have an entire identity crisis. People don't know what they want to be, who they want to be. And I'm not judging any of it, because I understand it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pieces there with the finding the identity is the ability to stop searching for it at a certain point, and like letting it be what it is, and recognizing that it's nothing and it's everything at the same time, which is confusing as shit, I understand. But ultimately, like, that's, for me, that's what it is like, my identity is everything. If you tell me that, like, I can't do something, I'm gonna fucking do it. And then if you tell me that I, like, you're looking at me and you're like, this is who you are, it's like, no, that's not who I am. So you can be like what you need to be in certain situations. And we talked about this the last time that you and I got together, where we plug in and we unplug. And I think that, that was my challenge to you, is like recognizing like that's okay to do. And, for people that are listening to this or watching this and recognizing like, I want that, but don't know how to do it. Like, that's what I mean by plugging in and unplugging, is like, it's okay to take one small step in the direction of, like, even if you get up in the morning and your husband or your wife, mainly probably your husband, left the toothpaste cap off, like, one day, don't yell at him for it. Just close it back up and put it away. Like, that's that one step of just letting something go and recognizing like that's human. And then you're going to recognize how good that felt. Might not be the first time, but the second time you do it, you're going to recognize like how good it felt not to harbor that feeling of like, God, he does this all the time. And you just let it go. And when you're able to do that, you'll start recognizing that throughout other things in your life too, of like, normally things that, somebody cuts you off. Well, maybe they have some place that's super important for them to be and they don't recognize it. And you just like, damn, that's a different way to look at it. And then everything just starts to roll in that direction. And like you said, you're going to get in your own way. You're going to have those times where you just like get really pissed off for no reason at all. And it's funny, you and I have conversations and you're like, that dude just triggers me. And I'm like, and I'm like looking at it like, why the hell does one guy trigger you? And then you say something back to me and I'm like, oh, that's dumb. And then you're like, well, why does that, like, we challenge each other in that place. And so, that's the encouragement I would find for anybody looking to gain that place or go towards that place, is really just like find someone that you feel models it, and just interact with them however you can. And whether it's somebody that you'll never meet that's passed away, that is like super famous on YouTube, that allows you to, view all of their stuff. There's obviously a few names you've already mentioned of that. You've probably never met a couple of those people, and yet they still have a huge impact on, how you live your life. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to be in the physical room with them to absorb what they're saying. So that would be one thing that I would say to take that step to liberation, is allowing yourself to really just let one little thing go and see how it feels, and then do it again.
Yeah, look for the truth. Look for the truth. Like, look for what feels true. And anytime there's a trigger, an aggravation, an anxious, none of that stuff is true. It's stuff we've created around us, right? So I think looking for the truth, and really looking for people who you'll know truth because it doesn't have a broadcast, right? You'll know truth because you'll feel the truth inside. And so yes, I found some people, some teachers around me, and some I've never met. Wayne left this earth a year after I got sober, and I never got to meet him, but he is definitely guiding me right now. And but Wayne told a lot of truth, and I knew it because when I would hear him talk, I would know it in here. And it wasn't like he was influencing my thought to create a new identity. It was that he was helping me liberate myself. So to your point, creating space for me to look objectively at the way that I was handling things or approaching things. I recently went through a new meditation course, and the teacher said, when you go into the country, you experience peace. It's quiet, stillness, everything, it's nothing. And yet here in Tampa, that same peace exists. But your mind is focused on the traffic, the to-dos, and so it's that it's the everything and nothing. It's that we're never absent of it. And that's the kingdom of heaven within. We're never absent of it. It's always with us, that ability to just be who we are and live the purpose, what we're here for. But if you have chosen lots of identities in the world, lots of personalities, which is our personal realities, then you may need to take some of that stuff off. And that's how I liberated myself. I got naked, naked metaphorically. And that, does this still serve me? Right? Because if it's self-serving, I can tell you it's not other serving. And so a lot of, like the pot, right, had to go. Just out in the open here, I'll tell you, I love smoking pot. I really enjoy it. I didn't have a problem with it. My family didn't have a problem with it. But did it serve me any longer? Or did it allow me to stay in that place of satisfaction and that place of, it was good for me, but there was nothing else happening beyond there? And I'm thankful I spent a year traveling and smoking some pot, and that's gone now. That's over. It's like I'm liberated from it. I don't crave it. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't judge it. But what's here now? What's here, and how do I interact with what's here in a way that is I'm liberated from that side of self that needs to serve me.
Yeah, that piece of the what is it serving piece, that was a big thing for me when I got sober, was just like looking inward and going, this isn't serving me at all. And we bank on those crutches of, well, it helps me be social. Well, what are you hiding from that makes you not be able to be social? It was a couple of drinks after work relaxes me, so you're not able to relax yourself. And so these people that are out here with these reasonings, and again, there's no judgment here, it's just a statement, but the ability of like looking at that and going, okay, I rely on this thing. Well, what happens on the days that you forget to buy a bottle? Like what do you do at home? Are you unable to relax that entire time? Do you find that's a problem? Because if the answer is no, it's not a problem, then okay, but be honest with yourself about it. And like, is this something I'm actually relying on? And I think that the stigma around the alcoholism, as we've said, is so huge that it pushes people to defend themselves. It's so interesting to me as a sober person to go out into public and have conversations and people go, hey, you want something to drink? I'm like, no, I'll just take a water. And they just look at you like, oh, you just taking a couple days off? And it's like, it's expected to be at that level of like, you have to go out. Like it's interacted into everything we do. And we're so attached to this thing that has been around for so long, and you can spin it however you want to. There's literally no health benefits around it. There's no advantage to it. In the smallest of quantities, there could be some kind of advantage in opening up your brain and kind of relaxing those things. But there's other things to do that don't destroy brain cells or like make you sleep for 3 days or like make you a piece of shit for half the week. Like there's so many other things that you can utilize that are helpful instead of, going through all of the bad stuff that comes after that. So, just being able to be open to the concept of like, is this truly serving me, and looking inward to that piece of like, I need to actually look at myself and look at what's going on, not just count on the shit that's always been there. And I think we always do that. And even just not in alcohol, in everything we do, are we doing it because that's what's serving us the best? Or are we doing it because that's how it's always been done? And always reminds me of the story that I'm sure 100 people, or if 100 people listen to this, 99 of them have heard the story of grandma cuts the ends off the ham, puts it in the stove. Grandma's
I've
daughter.
never heard this.
Okay, so all right, so there you go. You're the one out of 100.
All
No.
right. Yeah.
So it's a story about like Thanksgiving dinner, and they cook the ham for Thanksgiving. So grandma or great grandma cuts the ends off the ham, puts it in the stove. And she's not great grandma at this point, she's just mom. Well, her daughter, cuts the ends off the ham, puts it in the stove. And then her daughter cuts the ends off the ham, puts it in the stove. Every Thanksgiving, this repeats, and we get down to like great granddaughter. And great granddaughter goes, why do we do that? And her mom goes, well, it's just the way we've always done it. Let me ask my mom. She goes and asks her mom. She says, why do we do that? She said, well, it's just the way my mom always did it. And then she asked her mom, she goes, why did you do that? Because the stove wasn't big enough to fit the full ham.
Right.
So now you've got a giant stove and you're cutting the ends off the ham because that's what you've always done, and you're losing half your ham because it didn't fit in this first stove that somebody had. So just like recognizing that like what you're doing, does it matter? Does it actually serve you? Does it serve other people? Or is it just because that's what somebody told you to do one time? Or that's what somebody told you to think one time? And just
Yeah.
challenging that idea is so
Have you
important.
learned it as an ingrainment? And I think that's it, right? You learned it as an ingrainment and you never questioned it. And I think something needs to be spoken out loud here, is that self-serving is selfishness. And we very much live in a culture where we began this conversation with the great out for I, and what about me, and survival of the fittest. And that so focused on me, identity, self. That is what is disconnecting us from our freedoms, us from one another. That is the ultimate separation, is that significance of self and that social media need to fill it. And so I don't even think that an imperative question any longer is this serving, right? Like, is this self-serving or is this soul serving? Because on the soul serving side, it's going to be good for all, not good for one. And so I don't know that you can argue that drinking alcohol is good for anyone else but you. It's not. Smoking pot wasn't good for anybody else but me. I mean, maybe I had a couple good ideas that I shared with some people, but I was creating again this false reality that I would go and live in. And it's like the Matrix, right? Substances are our way to take the blue pill or the red pill. But either way, it's a way out. And
I but
out of I was talking about David Hawkins and the power versus force, though, when you froze. And just for anybody listening to this, another perspective on alcohol that isn't a judgment against it being something horrible is that everything is a frequency, we're vibration. Everything has a frequency and a vibration. And alcohol calibrates at 200. Love calibrates at 1,000. Certain books of the Bible calibrate at around 600, 700. alcohol calibrates at 200. And if you look at the emotions, energy and motion, guilt and shame calibrate at around 150, 200. And so you're putting something into your body. So you may be up here in a higher vibrational state, be it joy. But if you constantly are putting in something that has a low vibration, you're changing your vibration. And so alcohol does have the ability to change vibration. And I bet somebody listening to this might be like, well, that's not true because I'm very happy. And hello, I was a very happy drunk too until I wasn't. What it does is take away your inhibitions. And let's also be really careful that that is not your energy. It removes your personality, that thing we work really hard, that identity to develop, to protect us, to keep us in control. That's what it lets down, because you forget that part of you that you need to hold on to while you're taking in the substance. That's why substances work to release. But you are chemically changing your body, chemically changing your vibration.
Yeah, I think one of the easiest ways on an understanding piece to say it, and this applies to more than just alcohol, which is kind of why I'm saying it, to kind of transition into a piece of a different place, because I think we can go all day right on the alcohol piece, and it can be a difficult thing for a lot of people to hear. But the transition piece that's there is, if you're fighting that hard to keep something,
Right.
why are you fighting that hard to keep something? And what that can even be boiled down to farther is like, ask yourself why, on everything, good or bad. Because what I didn't recognize for a long time was why was I doing it? Well, now I look back and I go, because I didn't think I could fit in if without it. Or I go through high school and middle school and elementary school, and I was gifted in sports, I was gifted in school, and I was always the kid that kind of got singled out because of that. And so I refused to draw myself into a scenario where I gave less than 100% on things, and people fucking hated that, which translated into let them make fun of me like the crabs in the bucket and pull me into that. And then when I got to college, I was with a bunch of those people. But my thought process was, okay, they're drinking, I should be drinking. And then that's what turned into everything. Was the only way I could fit in was drinking, because that was my belief through that. And so that like I said, that fits with everything though. Like if you're fighting on I can't even think of a specific example that's small, but like something that's just minute in your life, that somebody would go, why do you do that? And you feel defensive when somebody asks you why you do that. Now you have to flip that and go, okay, well, why do I do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and you can let, you always say to me, everything's a teacher. And I love that statement. And you can allow that to be the case and say that literally anytime that it fires you up to defend it, you have to challenge that feeling in yourself. Otherwise, you're going to just continue doing the same thing all the time. So if you ever want to change and get into a better space in your life, that's the answer. That's the direction. That's how simple it can be. Now, when you get into it, it sucks and it hurts and it feels like, okay, I don't really know why. And you may never, or I'm not going to say never, but you may have difficulties finding it and on what the truth is. But that's how you seek the truth, is just ask yourself, why am I defending? Why am I
Yes.
getting fired up over this? Why is that person that cut me off triggering me?
Yes.
And, we have the forward experience of that, of, everything that you went through and everything that I went through. And we both talk about how that's a strength for us, because it's not, people look at us and they judge like, oh, you were an alcoholic. Well, yeah, but I'm not. Like, I'm on the
Yeah.
other side. Like, I'm on the
Yeah.
other side. I
Addiction,
beat that.
addiction set me free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Addiction set me free.
in such a weird way, I think we've made the statement before of, religion is for the people that believe in hell, or the people that are scared of hell, and spirituality is for the people that have been there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that's,
We create our hell, and that's not enough. And we don't ever sit back objectively to ask why, right? Why am I attracting these things that continue to, why am I not experiencing gratitude for all? Why is such a foundational, pivotal question. And like, why am I here? The other day I was putting a sign in a yard on a listing, and this young gentleman on a scooter stops and says, he's 23 years old. I'm 45. He goes, do you need help with that, ma'am? Because that's a man's job. And I was like, I don't need help, but if you would like to help me, I'll welcome your help. And so he wanted to help. So he came over and he was helping me. And we got to talking. And, I go straight into like, I don't, your name is your identity, your gender is your identity, your color is your identity, but it's not who you are, right? It's the, as Wayne says, once you label me, you negate me. So if I start putting all these things, your name, your gender, then I have forgotten who you truly are. And you're just this beautiful spirit. And so here's this spirit, these two spirits together. And we're talking. And I said, where, where were you before you were in your mother's womb? And he goes, in my dad's ball sack. 23 years old. And I go, okay, but before there. And he looks at me and he goes, I feel like this is a trick question. And he goes, but I feel like I know the answer. And I go, oh my God, then you do. Because you're all knowing. You're part of all knowing, the nothing and the everything. And I think when you can remember that, you are liberated from the identities, the stories, the experiences that we have paid so much attention to or grasped so tightly to that we forgot peace was everywhere. So,
Yeah, I love that. And, going down that line of that, when you mentioned like in Tampa, we have the difficulty. And I think it's because the noise outside is louder than the noise inside. And then when we get out in the country, we recognize like, holy shit, all of the noise is inside. Because you can really only have the noise that you let in anyway, right? And I find myself with this here in San Juan as easily as that damn ice cream truck that comes out every day and parks right outside my house across the street. And like this dude's just making a living and he loves his life, right? You go out and talk to him, he's the happiest guy you've ever met. And I'm sitting in here like, damn it, I can't do my thing because I'm letting that in. And so I've like recognized everything's a teacher. I've started to recognize like, okay, he's there, he can be there, and I can be here, and we can be fine. And
wow, that's
just that,
powerful.
yeah. So it's exciting to recognize the peace part that you're saying. And for a long time, I did the same thing where we were fighting for peace outward and fighting against things. And when you fight against it, you just welcome it to charge you even more because, you can look at this as simple as an argument. Like when someone's wrong and they know they're wrong and you step in and you tell them that they're wrong and they dig their heels in and then they fight back harder even though they know that what they're saying is probably not wrong, right? Like the sky isn't green, but if you tell somebody the sky's not green, they're going to dig in and push back even harder. And it's the same way with everything. So it's that equal and opposite reaction thing. If you can start letting things go and just releasing that, it allows so much more to enter your life. And I recognized it with alcohol when I got sober. I was flooded with things that I never thought I'd have because I released something that was the biggest part of me. I let it go, and I now have so many more things in my soul that I didn't recognize would be there. Like the ability to read 120 books in a year. I would have laughed at you if I did that, like while I was drinking. I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh yeah, I could probably read 150 if I really wanted to. Like it's such a freeing feeling. So that's the liberation piece is, I can tell it's a core piece of who you are and what you bring, and the value you bring is allowing people to be who they are. And that's, just one of the values that you bring. But to me, that's where I feel at peace with you, is the ability to just be who I am and every time, right? Like there's no judgment around in your presence. There's no judgment around what I bring, what I say, what I do. And you'll challenge some things, which is another value add, right? Like it gets you to think about it. But sometimes that
Small,
challenge
right?
has to come from outside. But when we can recognize it and challenge that from within, that's where the power lies. So
Yeah, you're not what you do. I think that statement alone is liberating. And I can see the human Miller. I can see the human condition. So therefore, why should I judge it? Everybody has their own experiences, their own story, their own path, or where they are in their path. And so I think that that's what connects us, is that you're living the human journey. I'm living the human journey. And how serious are we taking it while we're here? Because we're really only here for a flash. If you really think about it that way, we're not here for long.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do with what we have while we're here? And I think that that's a very foundational question. What are we going to do with what we have, what we've been given, and not the things that we've been given that we can touch, but the things that we've been granted within our souls, within our spirits to put us here together, right? You and I were orchestrated by an intelligence far greater than you and I could have ever conceptualized to birth this. It was both of us getting out of our own way. I'll tell a funny story while we're sitting here, though. I remember, was it early on, right? I tried to say, 51% of this is mine. Did I? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, there's the human condition, right? Like, I'm gonna be granted an idea, and I'm going to exert force and tell you how much I'm going to hoard and take as mine. And I loved that that was a real experience for you and I, because after I did it, it was like a week later, I was in my kitchen and I started laughing at myself. And that's when I called you. I'm like, it's nothing's mine. That in of its own is so liberating. Nothing is mine. Therefore, I need for nothing. And I have no possession over anything. That is the allowing. That's the freedom to let become what is going to become. And that goes against the grain for so many who have to say, I have to get my piece. This part is mine. You have to pay this much. And so I guess I'm liberating myself also from those ideas, but they still come.
Yeah, the
I told you.
submission piece, for me, the word submission has been something that's ringing through a lot of this, right? Is like submit to what you think should be the next step. If you're actually listening and you can hear the intuition, just submit to it and do it. And I've been this person especially in the mortgage part of my life, where I get to a certain level and then I go, I got this, and I just like back off. And then it becomes, I've got to a point of now I can just attract it. I'm like, who am I, Jesus? Like, I'm not like bringing in, like you said, no one's knocking on the damn door. Like, I can't quit doing the things that got me to this level of production and aspect. And it's really interesting because, you mentioned the action piece earlier of like, listen to it, but then act on it. And so, we talked about this a little bit in January when I was at the event that we talked about. And I was like, I'm going to dive into this coaching piece and I'm just going to submit and let it happen. I wrote it in my notebook throughout the 4 days that I was there, or 3.5 days. I wrote just submit like 3 or 4 times throughout the notebook. And it was just like, that was my theme. It was like, okay, if I do this, I'm going to just listen and do it. And that's been a big step in success. And it's really interesting once you start creating action, how fast it shows up. It's
Yes.
amazing.
And yes, because you're doing it from a place of surrender. That submitting is surrendering. And you're talking to someone who 21 years ago told the pastor to take out of our vows that I would submit to my husband. I thought that was incredibly weird. But from a spiritual standpoint, that submission is humility. That submission is to say that I am not going to come in here with resistance and force and try to change you. That I will submit to the love that we were brought together in this higher intelligence. So yes, you were in Glover University for a reason. And to submit, to listen, to meditate, to act. I mean, every religion says the same thing. If you're listening, every religion says the same thing, but in whatever language you understand it and whatever words that you're able to conceptualize it, at the essence of it is fast, meditate, act. You can use those words in any, they're interchangeable in different languages and different sayings, but fast, meditate, act. Stop taking in, begin to listen, and then act on what you hear. Because the intelligence that we came from is so far greater than what you and I can begin to even. We know one tiny bit, yet God knows all of it all the time. So if we fast, submit, surrender, act in all the ways we could say that differently to whoever's listening in that way, it feels good with you. You've got the formula. Nobody has to sell it to you. It's in you. Just do it. Nike had the best line ever. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as simple as that, right? Just do it. Unless I think you were saying the fast, meditate, act thing. Um, I think a lot of people struggle with the fasting piece because they instantly go to the food, and it doesn't have to be the food. It can be social media. It can be like you can fast from telling yourself that you're stupid, and when you get out, like you can fast from alcohol. You can fast like all of this stuff, right? And one of the things that I've noticed is it's amazing to me, and like literally, it's amazing to me about this notification or this realization is that everything is the same, just done at different levels. And if you look in an industry like real estate, you have a listing presentation. What do? You build rapport, you provide value, you ask for the deal. In a coaching program, you build rapport, you add value, you move on. It's all the same thing done at different levels. And so like people, they're struggling to, a lot of times with the content piece of social media, they struggle with it because they're thinking too much. Like literally just do what that person's doing in your own way, and it will be valuable because it's different, because it's yours. And it's so amazing to me to just really recognize like literally everything is just done at different levels, and
That's
being
my
able
16.
to.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Say hi.
Hi.
You're on a podcast right now.
Sorry. I'm
That's okay. So that's the light of my life right
There's
there.
you at a different level, right? Yeah.
There is. There's me at a different level, right?
Yeah.
Okay, honey. Have a great practice. Okay, I love you. Yes, yes, yes. It's all done at a different level. It's the same thing done at a different level, and also with a certain degree of complexity added in to make it that much more unachievable or achievable, depending upon who needs to do it when. And really, we've overcomplicated everything. The process is very simple. It all begins with connection. Fast, meditate, act always begins with that one simple word, connecting. And yeah, I love that. It's everything is done just on a different level, but let's take the complexity out of it. And I think it's very interesting that you brought up the fast thing and how we're trained, conditioned, like the cutting the hands off. I love that story, to instantly extract that word as to attach it to fast. I could never fast. I could never go without food. You hear that all the time, that I could never, right? And to even ponder on, I wonder if I could fast today from taking in a negative thought about myself. I wonder if I could fast today from needing to hear someone else's validation, from needing to hear one more YouTube on the talking heads who are out there talking about the matrix that we call life. We fasting literally means to not partake in. And so we don't have to apply that for food. And I sometimes wonder, if we didn't partake in the things that we have habituated within ourselves, who we might find underneath those layers, not instantly, because nothing worthy or worth having happens overnight, despite what the world teaches us. But fasting, listening, acting, and then playing that and repeat. And so if anybody's listening to this and like, I don't know where to begin fasting, begin with the thing you struggle with most.
And
You're aware
arguably
of what you struggle with most.
yeah, you mentioned that it's not going to come right away. And it's funny because the exact opposite is going to come right away. Like when you don't yell at your husband for the toothbrush or the toothpaste, like we talked about earlier, when you don't yell at your husband for leaving the toothpaste open, you're going to go to the kitchen and there's going to be two cupboard doors open. And you're going to go, okay, this is the next one. And then you're going to close that. And you're going to go back to the bathroom and the toilet seat's going to be up and the toilet wasn't flushed. And you're going to be like, okay, now it's going a little bit farther. And then, you're going to go and you're just going to continually find more and more. And you're asking the universe and asking the creator for a strength in a certain position. And he's not handing you the strength. He's saying, beat this and it's yours.
Everything's a teacher. Everything's the teacher. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear. So the minute that you're like, I'm going to fast, what you need to fast from will appear. It's only your job to stay open to seeing it. Everything is our teacher. Everything is our teacher. And when you look at it that way, it is just extreme gratitude that comes through. and gratitude for everything. I love to tell the story of we're getting sued, and the day that my husband opened up the letter and he read it with gratitude. And what a profound teacher he was in that moment. I'm standing across the kitchen. I instantly think of, oh, we got to batten down all of our assets. Here I go with like, somebody's going to try
Cross
to
your
hurt
arms and hold on.
me. Right? Oh my God, my stuff, the 51%. Oh my God, how quickly it can come back. But because I now see him as my teacher, and my question is, I wonder what he's teaching me in this. I can observe it and not attach to it. Katrina 3 years ago would have been like, what's wrong with you? You're so weak. Like, nothing bothers you. But today I just, to intercept it all with gratitude allows him to stay in this place. Nothing blips his radar. Nothing. He would never use the word "she triggers me." But no, I say dumb shit all the time. He loves me for it. And sometimes he'll come back to me when I really get onto him. He'll be like, thank you for opening my mind to this. When I feel the friction and I'm rah, rah, rah with him, thank you for opening my mind to this. And, and what he opens my mind to is, maybe I needed to listen more about how to say it in love instead of from a place of fear or from a place of judgment. And so here we are, connected as we are. We're never going to be wholly connected until we return back to the spirit from which we came from. But on this journey together, I think one of the greatest commitments we can make to one another is to reconnect. And yes, it came because real estate connections, but reconnect is just this really intimate word that I'm offering you a space to reconnect with yourself, with your source, with one another, so that we can help each other through this human condition of life.
Yeah.
And that's
And
all I got.
Yeah, I love it. I think we covered a lot of ground and allowed for a lot of space for thoughts to come in, and we do this pretty well pretty often. I'll throw my ego statement out there of that. Like, when you and I get together, I feel refreshed and better at the other side. And so, I appreciate that from you for allowing that space to come in, because that has been a difficult thing for a lot of people, is to allow that space. And I like to, you say it's space for creation, and I like to say, like, we're bringing our powers together to create, because you and I have pretty large power circles that we know, and in REConnect we call that, circle of impact, and being able to bring that together with you finally on a recorded piece. We have all this amazing stuff that we've said that we're like, oh shit, I should have recorded that and missed it. But so I appreciate you, spending some time and spending some space with me here, and hopefully the people listening got something out of it as well.
This is my new high.